What's up, folks? Tim here, aka Renfell. I got my office chair back. I started recording this video, but I was in the other chair because Smeagol had robbed my chair. But he moved back to his designated sweater, so I'm here now in my own chair, and we're gonna do this video. Hopefully, in an uninterrupted take. But I don't script anything, so um, we'll see how this goes. Topic of this video is I don't I don't do a lot of these anymore, where I just sit down and talk. I did a series for a long time in the early days of this channel called Monday Musings, where I would record a weekly vlog post about life and, 15, 30 minutes long, sometimes 45 minutes long. Who knows where this one's going to end up. But they would just be about life and travel and things apart from what I normally produce here on the channel, which is to make me money because YouTube is and has been my full-time gig since basically last year when I got monetized on February 17th of 2022. Thanks to all of you who support because it keeps me doing this full time. Uh, the commentary and questions recently on a few videos, and I've noticed some comments. So thanks to those of you who have made these comments, and it's a fun topic to discuss, which is how do I remain so prolific? Like, what's the secret? Is there a secret? Um, Chris and I used to get asked this question a lot when we were doing public speaking for the 7 or 8 years that we did it when we were in the travel industry, and I think it just comes down to it's discipline more than anything else, but it does there is a switch that some people have, and it's the entrepreneurial switch. It's the motivation and the drive. It's this thing within your brain that's constantly scratching, and it's not satisfied being in one place. Like it wants to do things, it wants to create, it wants to, so there's a drive, and that's important. Not everyone has that drive. Um, Even if you don't have the drive, though, the discipline is something that can be applied to anyone out there who has a creative idea or creative mindset. But consistency and how do you produce so much? There are so many hours in the day. How do you do it? Um, that's kind of a lifelong thing that I could talk about. So I'm going to try to answer it in today's video. Now, I haven't done one of these in a while where I just sit down and talk with people. In the beginning stages of this channel, I had the Monday Musings show. And I used to do these every Monday. I did like 80 or 90 episodes. I don't remember, like a year and a half. And then it was just life, talking about stuff. You can also see that I've put on quite a bit of weight since we moved here, everybody. I have officially I've gained about 8 pounds since we moved here last year. But if you also consider that I quit running and quit going to the gym and I lost muscle mass on top of adding 6 pounds, I've probably converted about 20 pounds to just pure pudge. I actually have a belly now that hangs over my belt, and it's actually quite scary. And I'm okay to talk about it. You can't. It doesn't look like it right now because I'm relaxed back. But trust me, I have a 20 pounds of flab right here that I could get rid of. I get embarrassed about it, but when I'm sitting like this, it doesn't look too bad. So, um, anyway, you guys know I don't do scripts, so I'll just ramble here. He's okay. We're good. So we have the Homestead channel, which is Marginal Boundaries, and then I have this channel. But then I also have that project, which is the partnership that I have with my wife and my brother. That's the Wandering Hermits. That's the LLC. Um, and that houses everything with the Weave in the Void, which is our tabletop world point and click adventure game and fantasy book series. Which, by the way, chapter 34 is going live the day that I'm recording this, which I'm recording this on the 24th, I think. Yeah. So I don't know when this will get published, but the chapter 34 is coming out, and chapter 35 is going to be the last chapter in that book. So that's going to be out the door. The tabletop was released last year. We're good to go. Prior to that, I founded Stormhaven Studios and ran a team of up to 22 people, I think, at one time, working on an MMORPG. I was the creative director and the CEO. I did that for 7.5 years. Prior to that, Chris and I had our travel blog and our public speaking career. It was a lot of different things. We were basically working as influencers and content creators in the travel space. And we did that. I did that for about 10 years. Chris was alongside me for about 7 of those because I was doing it when I met her, and then she became involved in it over time. Um, we ran an Airbnb in Cancun. We ran a tour service. photography, videography, a lot of different things. I've written around 20 million words for people around the world since I started my career as a writer. And prior to all of that, I had a ceramic tile and natural stone contracting company in Colorado for essentially 8 years on my own, um, when I first started being self employed at 21. Prior to that, I worked for my dad's construction company as a third generation natural stone and tile contractor. Um, my grandfather, my uncles, my cousins, we all grew up in the industry. And alongside of that was the dairy farm and ranching stuff. So I have been doing some form of labor related to making a living since I was 5 years old. As soon as I was old enough to carry buckets and help out with chores on the farm, I have been doing things to make a living. So this comes back to the discipline component. Um, some things you learn through just repetition and doing and the constant doing of. It's also why I've been very candid with people that at 43, I'm 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 done. Like I can foresee only a couple of instances where I would want to re-enter the workforce. And that would be, I think the only one that would do it is like one of the only ones would be like if something happened to Chris and God forbid this would ever happen, I'm throwing this out there, like there would need to be an emergency scenario where I need to take care of her or another close family member, something like that, where that person becomes incapable of taking care of themselves. If I had to become a full-time caretaker, that would probably push me to finding some work, to just cover overhead and everything else. But as it is, it's like we're both healthy. We both produce here around the house for ourselves. We have the homestead. We paid for it in cash in at the end of 2021. Um, I am not a millionaire. I'm not even wealthy by pretty much any standard of financial scaling in the world. But what I do have, I need to drink some coffee. My voice is all sorts of froggy this morning. What I do have is everything's paid for. I've lived a very frugal existence for a long time now. And that has allowed me the opportunity to pursue creative endeavors that many people can't because they're so focused on working 2 or 3 jobs just to pay the bills to live in a place that the cost of living is ridiculously insane. I have been preaching this for years. You can go back and watch any of my old, I mean, you can find them if you Google them. I think 3 or 4 of my presentations are online in some format, from back in the day. And one of the things I reliably talked about at every conference is the importance of digital nomad, being a digital nomad. You can live anywhere in the world that there's an internet connection and make a living online. The moment that that unlocked for me, I went from working construction to that, my life completely changed. I do not have a college education. I never finished high school. I literally have a GED. I never finished. And there's reasons for that, which we've talked about in live streams. Um, but I've made it and I've done okay. But Chris and I are in a position where we can live on very little in terms of month to month finances compared to what most people have. And that's because of conscious decision making. Conscious decision making. Sorry, guys, I had to clear my throat. But the prolificness is something that just comes from when you do things you love, it doesn't feel like work. That is absolutely true. It can feel like work. And there are some times when you're going to work way more. Well, I think most of the time you're going to work way more hours than you would ever work at a traditional 9 to 5 job. If you were punching the clock, you have 40 hours a week, you know. Um, Depending on your situation, you might work more than that because of the need to bring in more money. Um, but I don't have to work that. I choose to do those hours per day because I'm doing the things I love. So yes, I have this channel. I produce on average, I try to produce 4 videos every single day. Why? Well, for one, the YouTube algorithm at the moment will push out 3 notifications per day for people who have pushed the bell icon and said subscribe to all. So I can produce 10 videos a day. They're only going to get notifications for 3. Anything I produce beyond those 3, they're only going to know that those came out if they're on my page or if they are on their for home page or if they're on their phone scrolling YouTube, like the For You page. Essentially, well, that's what's called TikTok. I forget what it's called on. I think it's just the home page on YouTube. Anyway, so I try to produce 3 a day. The minimum is 3 a day that I will produce for YouTube. The reason for that is because 3 notifications will go out per day. Now that could be any combination of things. It could be 2 live streams and a video, or 3 videos, or 2 videos and a live stream. But just 3 pieces of content produced every single day for this channel. This channel is my money-making channel, so I have to hold to that because the more videos I produce, the more followers I get, the better the channel grows. The more views there are, the more ad revenue comes in. And ad revenue does not pay a lot, but it does pay. So more chances for memberships, more chances for super thanks and super chats, more exposure for the Patreon, more exposure for the books, more exposure for everything. Now beyond that though, if I want to reach people who aren't necessarily subscribed, but they're on their homepage and they're getting recommendations from other videos and things of that nature, I need to produce additional videos as well so that I'm hitting all of these different algorithmic waypoints, right? These overpasses and exits, that people might take as they're driving down the information freeway. The more times I can show up as a potential exit for someone to come take the off ramp and let's go over here and see what this is, the more times I do that, the better it is for me. So I try to be as prolific as possible on YouTube here with this channel because it's my primary channel and this is where I make money. So the objective here is to a minimum of 3 a day, but ideally what I like to do is 3 videos a day plus one in the afternoon at 5 p.m. that I do every single day, which is the sort of the let's play, hang out with me as I play a video game for 15 to 30 minutes. Those are pre-recorded. It's very much chapter format. I'm not trying to do like guides for those videos. It's a chapter of me playing a game. It's like watching me play a live stream, but it airs as a premiere, and I don't always have my face on. But it's just a way for people to sit down with Tim for 30 to 45 minutes and hang out, get a piece of my content. Those videos do not get a lot of views. I don't really promote those even on Discord or social media. I just put those ones out at 5 p.m. and let them do what they're going to do to the people who are tuned in for extra on YouTube. Now, around that, I'm trying to produce 2 to 3 shorts a day. Um, Yesterday was I'm recording this on the 24th, so I don't know when this is going to air, but February 23rd was a news day where a lot of things happened during the day. We had the announcement of the Baldur's Gate 3 launch thing. We had, fuck, I don't even remember now. What else was A lot of stuff happened yesterday. So on top of the 3 that I produced for the morning, I also produced another 3 or 4 videos. Oh, the Lord of the Rings, Warner Brothers and New Line Cinema announced they're going to do more Lord of the Rings films. So there was lots of news that happened yesterday. So I produced additional videos. So I did 6 videos yesterday on top of the 3 different shorts that I did for that day, and I had a 7th video that was the 5 p.m. one. So there was 10 pieces of content that came out across my channel on Thursday, the 22nd of February. So that means for every waking hour that someone is up and tuning into their device, there's a good chance that my content is going to pop up somewhere in their feed. So it's easy for me to be that productive because I'm doing things that I'm doing those things regardless. I love video games. I love tabletop. I like watching movies. I like reading books. So monetizing my hobby and turning that hobby and those hobbies into business opportunities, it's it's not a difficult thing to do. It's time consuming. And you have to treat it like a job. And that's the distinction that a lot of people have. They're like, well, I don't want to record. I just want to sit down and relax. I don't want to, why would I want to record this? Once you can get past that's the switch, but it's also trainable. That's a switch that you can flip. Um, to always think about something as a piece of content that can be monetized, because it could be. Doesn't mean you need to monetize everything that you do. There's a lot of stuff that I do that I don't monetize. Um, I read books. I don't monetize. Where's my Kindle? I don't read as much as I used to, but I don't monetize everything I read here. I monetize the Lord of the Rings stuff, but not the other stuff. Um, I don't monetize every video game I play, despite the fact that I have a gaming channel. There are some games I just play for me, mostly sports games. Madden is one that I'll play, and NBA 2K I'll play, and then also the MLB games. I like those games. I have occasionally made content around those, very rarely. Most of the time, the only thing I do is I'll do fantasy and science fiction stuff, RPGs, CRPGs, MMORPGs, because that's the majority of what I play. Anyway, the mentality thing is you have to be able to say, I want to do something for me instead of for someone else. There are huge amounts of risk associated with that. Until you get really, really big, you're not going to make a lot of money as a content creator and doing what you love. It's just the reality. There's always the lightning, unicorn, stroke of luck people. I'm not one of those. I am, as I mentioned, by every standard of the definition, I do not have an excess of wealth. I have things that I own, which some people might view as wealth. I have assets. Chris and I have a place that's paid for. We have no debt. We have no credit card debt. We have no car loans. We have no school loans. We are debt free in our early 40s. That does allow us a level of financial freedom that a lot of other people don't have, and that does help. So understand that going into this, if you're going to be doing it as a hobby and you only have 2 hours or 3 hours a day in free time because the rest of the time you have to go to a 9 to 5, that's okay. We've all been there. I did that for many years as well. For many, many years, about 10 years. I think it was less than that. It was like maybe 8.5. My travel writing paid the bills, and I worked on my stuff. Like Chris and I did our Cancun guidebook. We went and did all the restaurants that we did for the Foodies Guide. We went and did all the ruins. We were building up our travel blog in the spare time that we had outside of outside of me doing the travel writing gigs. And Chris was still working in hotels and stuff at the time. And then that just grew from there. It started off as a side gig, not even a side gig. It started off as something we're doing in our spare time for a couple of years. Then it started making money, and then the revenue streams started to grow from there because we were constantly. So here's an example of what it takes, right? So when we were transitioning the travel blog, which is called Marginal Boundaries, which is what we used to do for a living, when we were transitioning that from hobby to full-time source of revenue, by the time we did this, we'd already been in it for about 2 years. So I had done some local presentations around the Riviera Maya, giving consultations and presentations at hotels and at small local business conferences on social media and using the power of Facebook and Facebook ads and YouTube and all this other stuff. Um, had already worked with some restaurants, had already worked with, but let's just take this where it started. Working full time as a travel writer, then at the afternoons, I would go out and we would go around. We would go to local businesses that we liked anyway, and we would shoot photography and shoot video around those places. It's free in the sense that we're already going to go there, right? So we might as well film that and photograph that. And we quickly found that in many cases, the restaurants would be open to the idea of, oh, you're doing this for publicity? Well, we'll give it to you for free. If you're going to put that up on YouTube and on a website and you're going to take pictures, not always, but I'd say about 60% of the time we would get that meal for free because we were there doing it on our own anyway. We were willing to pay for it. We didn't come into it with the influencer attitude of you should give it to me for free because of what I'm going to do for you. We just went in there. We were there anyway as guests, so we're already going to pay for it. So for me, it's a tax write-off at that point because I'm doing this for a business purpose. So that's a tax write-off. So why wouldn't I go to dinner? Um, get about 60% of your meals for free. Then you start offering to do, you go to a hotel. I'm going to go stay at this hotel for the weekend and film a bunch of content around this hotel. And then the hotel sees you with your camera gear and they're like, well, what are you doing? And you're like, well, I'm doing, oh, well, do you guys want a media rate? Well, the media rate can get you sometimes as much as like 60% off. And in some cases, you might get it for free, just like you would a restaurant. So, okay. So we did a few of those, got, a dozen hotels under our belt, a dozen restaurants under our belt, all doing that in a spare time while I was working full time as a travel writer for other places. Then when we started pushing it, that got me a few gigs speaking at hotel conferences and stuff. And then once I had all that together, that was about a year's worth of work doing all that, a year and a half of building all of that as a unpaid thing. We were just doing it to make content for the brand. We then literally we went and printed a box of 500 business cards. And I shit you not, Chris and myself went out in the 95-degree Cancun heat during the middle of summer and we went door to door and handed out 500 business cards over 2 weeks. Every single hotel, every single restaurant, every single tour agency, every single place we could find. We were out there for 4 to 6 hours a day just handing out business cards. At the same time, I had an assistant who was living with us in Cancun. We had a big 3-bedroom place, and he shared it with us. And he and I at nights were then going to Expedia, and we were pulling the email lists of every single hotel, tour agency, et cetera, that we could find, and blanketed. We sent out 3,000 emails in 1 month. Um, Blanketed the entire Riviera Maya. So suddenly everyone's getting hit with emails and business cards from this guy named Tim Anderson and his wife, Christina Barrios. Wow, these guys are persistent. Let me check their Facebook page out. Let me check their Instagram. Oh, they actually do pretty good photography. Oh, they do videography. Oh, he's working for TripAdvisor and he's working for Oyster and he's doing presentations for these local hotels. Oh, I know the manager of that hotel. Oh, I know the manager of that restaurant. Hey, did you work with this guy, Tim Anderson? Oh, yeah, him and his wife, Chris, were really, really lovely. Check this video out that they did for us. That 1 month of a year and a half of building up, and then the 1 month of just getting out there and hammering on marketing got us 3 years of work and revenue, full time paid work, and launched our speaking careers. So, you know, the persistence is key, but the understanding of that you you can't take no for an answer and you just got to go out and get it. Sitting on your ass and waiting for it to happen are never going to be solutions ever. So, I've always had that mentality because if you go fast forward from or go rewind from there, in the pre-internet days, that was how I got work with my construction company. 2001, 2000, I'm a 20, 21-year-old kid. The internet didn't exist back then the way it does today. So I was still literally using a phone book, like a literal phone book, where I would go into the phone book and I would find and I would literally go around to like 6 different cities within a 200-mile radius or whatever, and I would get phone books from each one of those places, and I would just call every single carpet shop, Home Depot type hardware store, etc., that I could find in those yellow pages, and I would say, "My name is Tim Anderson, blah 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 blah." Then I would also, if they were in an area was close enough, I would then mail something to them. Hey, I talked to you on the phone the other day. I just wanted to reiterate, if you ever come across something, here's my number, here's my business card, etc. And then I would also on Sundays, and this is while I was working, any gigs that I had or working with, my dad's company or contracting out here and there. Because even though when I got on my own, I still did some contracting work. I did a couple projects for my dad, but that didn't end well, so I mostly did other stuff. Um, but On Sundays, I would then drive. I would get in my truck, and gas prices, yeah, they were expensive back then. They're still expensive now, but I would get in my truck and I would drive down the freeway, and I would just, the first exit I found that led to a town, I would get off on the exit, and I would drive around that whole town, and I would look for subdivisions, and I would look for houses that were being demolished or remodeled. Um, doesn't matter. And you go to these places, and you literally will just take your stack of the 1,000 business cards, and you'll just stick your business card in the door of every place you can. And if you find a place that like is like a new construction or anything, you just literally take, I had a hammer tacker on my belt hilt, and I just tack my business card on the door. If I ever had spare time during the week, I would drive to these places and I would look for the job trailer where the general contractor is. 9 times out of 10, they've already got people they're working with. That's fine. The objective is exposure. This goes back to the 6 to 8 videos a day on YouTube. Exposure. So you're showing up, you're showing you have gumption, you're showing you're not afraid to work, you're showing you're not afraid to do the what it takes. You get a face, and most of the time they're gonna be like, we already have a contractor, and you're like, that's okay, that's great. Keep this card. If something comes up, maybe he gets sick and needs somebody to come in for fill in for a couple of days, maybe you got a little remodel project that you end up wanting to do on the side. Let me know. I'm available. Just give me a call. And I would get work from that as well. So you're just constantly out there exposing, getting yourself in front of people, constantly doing these things. You're not sitting and being passive. So I have been prolific for many, 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 many years. So first and foremost, doing what I love means that I can. It's not hard for me to do this every single day for many, many hours because I love video games. I love books. I love. It was a lot harder. I did construction because I had no choice. That's a long story, but I didn't have a choice but to do that. But that's why I was so hungry back then, was because I was a early 20s with no, I never finished high school, never went to college. I had to do that to eat. And you either become homeless or you make it happen. So, by the time I was in my late 20s, I had a fairly successful small business doing $100,000 plus a year with 2 employees. Um, and then 9/11 happened and the economy went, and I saw the writing on the wall, sold my tools, sold my truck, dis, dis shut down the S corp that I had. I literally sold my truck for like $3,000 under asking price, just enough to pay off the loan. And I think I got like $1,500 extra. I sold all my tools. Like I had like $7,000 worth of tools at the time. I gave them all to a friend for $1,000. I was like, there's a guy I worked with, and I was like, look, man, I'm done. If you're still gonna do this, that's cool. I'll give you a really good deal. $1,000, you can take my whole inventory. He was like, dude, are you sure? What if you change your mind? And I'm like, I ain't changing my mind. Like, I'm done. So he got $7,000 worth of tools for $1,000. Um, and I was done. And I switched and I said, I'm going to become a writer. That's what I've always wanted to do. And that's when I started becoming a writer. And my writing career started off the same way. I literally just started and said, I want to do this. I wrote a short story. It sold the first place I sent it to. I'm in. Found some websites that needed content around construction, which I knew. Got in. Found a game studio that was hiring interns to do writing. It was shit pay. It was $10 per month essentially to write like 8 hours a week. I don't care. I got my name on the credit of a game, which then got me a better paying gig at Killer Guides, where I was writing game guides for EverQuest 2 and Lord of the Rings Online. And those guys were making me a couple $1,000s a month. And at the time, I was off. That was when I had transitioned to Bulgaria, so I was living in a place where I only needed like $500 a month to live. So making $2,000 a month off of guidebooks that I was writing on a living, plus another 500, $600 in freelance stuff. I was, 3,000 a month was more than enough. Because you're putting 2,500 a month, well, 2,000 a month after taxes, but you're putting $2,000 a month, in the bank. There's nothing wrong with that. Um, the one thing I didn't do when I was younger that I wished I would have done when I was younger, and I'm learning this as I gotten older, is I didn't make any investments when I was younger. Hindsight's 2020, that kind of stuff. Whatever. Just constantly be putting yourself out there. But how do I do that? I don't have that drive. Well, you got to find that drive. Like no one's gonna give it to you. No one is There are no participation trophies in life. I know you've probably heard that before from other people better than I. It's true. There's no participation trophies. There is just what you can get. What you can get out of it is what you're gonna get. Um, I think the most important thing is to find whatever it is you're passionate about and pursue that as a hobby until you get really good at it. And once you get really good at it, you can start to put it out there in the public. You don't have to wait that long. I've always been a big fan of just producing is more important than perfection. Most of the consultations I've worked on over the years have been about, like for example, when Nick and Margarita from The Crowded Planet. I remember this because she came to me as an intern, and their blog at the time was um, just like camping stuff, right? Like they were going around Italy and other places and doing their camping stuff, and I was like, you live in Milan, you're Italian, so he's Australian, but you're Italian, Margarita, and you live in Milan. I'm like looking at the internet. I go to a quick Google search. I'm like, you could literally just make a whole bunch of content around Milan and establish yourself as a local expert on top of what you're already doing. And she's like, oh, I don't want our brand to, divide itself. I want to only be known for the camping stuff. But he was like, yeah, but the camping stuff, you're not making any money at it. Like the traffic, you could still have that. You could blend it with something else and be a hybrid website. And I convinced her during the internship to do the Mondays in Milan series. You remember Mondays in MMORPGs, Monday Musings? I'm a big fan of the the Monday type stuff. It's weekly episodes. Let's just figure out a day that works for you. I also do Tuesdays in Tabletop, Tuesdays with Tim. Just pick a day, come up with a quirky title for it, but just pick the day. It's important to have a day. It's structure, it's regularity, it's a schedule. Mondays in Milan. I was like, every week you and your husband need to go out and do the things that you're already doing, which is what I was doing in Cancun, and do that. Record around the things you're already doing. She did that, I think it was like 2, 3 weeks, and up popped a job offer from National Geographic to work on a project in Milan of like local stuff. And she applied and immediately got the position working for National Geographic, doing like a guidebook and working with them on Milan stuff. And some of that was just luck of timing, but also a lot of it was because those videos were picking up because she was producing content regularly. You'll hear this from every internet person out there. Always have a schedule, always be regular, produce, 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 produce. That's also just a key in today's um, attention span economy. If you're not putting something out, someone else is. And the audience is only going to remain engaged as long as you have content for them to engage with. Because if you don't, they're gone. They're off to some other content creator because there's 5 million of them every single day. You know, find what you love, pursue it with passion, but be dedicated. Like it's just you have to be dedicated. Um, I'm pretty good at this channel because it's my channel, but the other channel is weird because the homestead we've turned it into the homesteading channel now. That was always just our repository. I was using that. I was using YouTube years and years and years ago, back in like 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, as a place to store my videos and then host those on our blog. Because blogging used to be where it was at, not YouTube. So YouTube was always just a repository. And when it became monetized, I was too deep into other areas and making a good living in those other areas. So I never really focused on YouTube as a thing for the travel brand. So when we came back around to it and we decided, I think this was sometime in the middle of last year after we'd moved here, maybe late last year, Chris and I were having a discussion about, well, what do we want to do from here on out? We bought the place, we moved here. My gaming channel is doing okay. We're making a living off of it. I'm not getting rich off this channel, ladies and gentlemen. I haven't done an episode, but I did the first 6 months of this channel, the first 6 months of being full time on YouTube. Check those episodes out last year if you want to check it out. Um, our bills get paid. That's it. There's no extra money coming in from YouTube at this point. Maybe it's someday if the channel continues to grow like it's been growing. There's a good chance by the end of this year we could be in a position where we're making more than we need to just pay bills. It's not going to be a lot, but it'll be excess, and that'll be kind of groovy to see that happening. But we've also we're doing all these other things. It's like the homestead takes a lot of time. I mean, we're outside for 4 to 6 hours a day doing chores and maintenance, you know. This place is 20 years old, but it needs a lot of work. We have flooding issues. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the light flicker every time the air conditioner turns on, the lights flicker. And that's because I'm dealing with original wiring. So I got the house rewired for all the business stuff. So my air conditioner, my computers, the refrigerator, so I got circuits put in. They didn't have circuit breakers. There were no, check this out on the homesteading channel if you want to learn more about this stuff, because Chris and I have been documenting this process. There were no circuit breakers when we moved to the house. There was a 20-year-old breaker box that had two wired two wires coming in, two cables. One was for the lights throughout the house. That was the flicker. Did you see it? So one was the lights throughout the house, and the other one was all the electrical outlets. When we moved in, only two out of like the 10 electrical outlets had plates, had boxes in them. The rest were just open boxes, open holes with wires sticking out after 20 years. Because it has house, it's the long story. Um, when they put in the circuit breakers for my stuff, it was mostly for the office and the kitchen stuff. We left all the original wiring for the light fixtures. So the problem is that because those wires are so old, there's a short somewhere in the system. It's not a big deal because it's just the lights, so I ignore it. But there is a short in the system somewhere, and it's probably 20 years of moisture and lizards who live in the conduits and tropical environment and just exposure. Who knows? Because who knows whether those things are wire tied correctly and with electrical tape and all that good stuff, because nothing's built to code. So I just ignore that. That's a thing. But when we moved in, that's what we had. We just had that wire box. So getting that fixed was the first big thing. I had a point I was making with this, and I don't know why, because I heard Chris out there and I got sidetracked. Um, we do a lot of stuff. That was chores. That's what I was talking. We do 4 to 6 hours a day of 4 to 6 hours a day of stuff around here. Stuff like that. I got to get the wires done. I got to get the wiring redone. I got to get a circuit breaker installed. I got to Chris. If follow Homesteading channel. Chris does she does almost all of our plumbing. Hey Chris, Christy, I'm gonna go get her real sick. Hang on. I know she's complaining that she needs coffee, but I pulled her in here before she'd had her coffee. You only have to sit for a second. So, if you're not following the homesteading channel, who does all the plumbing in the house? Who does all the electrical work in the house? Actually, the electrical we hire out for a lot of, but you do all the plumbing. You've done some. I've done most of the carpentry. You've done some of the carpentry. She does all the gardening. I help with the gardening a little bit. You do most of the gardening. You do all the plumbing. I haven't done any plumbing in this house. You've done like 4 or 5 projects. Oh, the shower's next. Yeah. She fixed last week she fixed yeah, last week she fixed the sink in the bathroom and the toilet because they were both leaking all over the place and needed replacement parts. So anyway, this is the kind of stuff. I'm going to see if I can leave that there. Hopefully I don't. I'm just going to here I'll just I was talking about all the things we do outside. Like every day there's 4 to 6 hours of chores minimum. You do a lot more than that because you're also doing, there's the daily stuff with the chickens and the all the cat poop and cleaning of the cat stuff and laundry and dishes. We do the grocery shopping. Mostly we do that together. The close stuff you do by yourself, like the running down. I mean, down the street to buy chicken. It's 90 seconds, 2 minutes. Also the meat, the butcher. So, but anyway, she's always outside working. So we were discussing what do we do with marginal boundaries? Do we still do anything with marginal boundaries? Because look, the Renfail channel is doing really well and it's growing. What if we did the same thing for the other channel? What would we do with it? Because it used to be a travel channel, but it was our library. We didn't, it wasn't like it is now where I'm doing content full time. because back in the day, blogs were full time. So I did blogging full time, and YouTube was a thing where I could host a video to put into the blog. So I was looking at the other channel and going, what do we do with that? And we thought about, well, we could travel again, but just travel within Mexico. But then it's like, yeah, but we don't have a car yet. But we have all the camera gear. I have a drone that I've almost never used because when I bought it, we used it in Ireland. Then I got back, and the contract that I thought was getting extended for another year got canceled. And I was sitting with a drone that I had just purchased, planning to use it for the next 2 years. And that project was now up in smoke. And it was like, well, I've never used that drone apart from that one project. Right. So we were like, well, what if we look at all these homestead channels? Why don't we do that? I mean, we're kind of we're late to that party, like people have doing. But most people, I think, who like the video I showed you the other day, like the girl who was like the perfect little cabin with her little hot cocoa in the fireplace and her little bluffy dog, and it's like that's a $500 million property, and she's not homesteading for real. She's an Instagram model who has money, and she bought a piece of property. It's like, what about the grungy like the Nate guy on TikTok who has the long red hair and the long beard and he doesn't shower and he lives in a mobile home and he has an outhouse and but he's building his place. He has solar panels. You know, it's like we could totally do that. And so that's what we decided to do with Marching Boundaries was turn it into a homesteading channel. Because here's the thing, this goes back to what I was talking about earlier. How am I prolific? Well, I'm literally just making content around the things that we are already doing, which is something we've been doing for years. I was telling them, remember when we went and printed the business cards for Marginal Boundaries and we went all around Cancun and we just gave business cards to the hotels and to the restaurants and then we got the speaking. Remember my very first speaking engagement in Cancun. We still have the newspaper somewhere, but they totally misspelled my name. They called me Henderson, Tim Henderson. And it's in print, Tim Henderson. And I was like, I didn't even correct them. I was like, I am Henderson. That's correct. I am Tim Henderson. Here's my website. I didn't care. It was like it was a speaking engagement. So as long as my photo's on it, you know. Um, so we've done a lot, and the idea is just it's literally. I don't think it's nearly as much of a accomplishment as some people think it is because it's not like I'm doing extra right now. I'm just creating content around the stuff we already do. So it's like yesterday, we had to fix the chicken wire for the garden so we could let the chickens out. Well, that's a recordable piece of content. The video that I'm going to be cutting today after we're done here is literally Chris took her phone 2 nights ago when you were cleaning the chicken coop and recorded her cleaning the chicken coop. That's a piece of content. It's chores. It's chores, but it's content. And thank you for recording that because she's horrible about remembering to record. And I tease her about it sometimes. Anyway, thank you for coming in here. Go get your coffee. Yeah, he came in. He was being very aggressive again, but he calmed down finally. Yeah. All right. Thank you for sharing, Chris. I'll be out in a little while. I'm rambling here. She hadn't even had her coffee yet. That was nice of her to come in here and do that. Anyway, I guess that's it. I'm 45 minutes in and I kind of just rambled as I warned you I might. So yeah, there is some of it's just really hard work, some of it's just dedication. It's also I think there's a part of me that just I understand. Well, there's two things. One, I'm old. I'm 43 and I have been working since I'm 5. I don't want to go back to the workforce. I don't need to go back to the workforce. It would take an emergency for me to need to go back to the workforce. Like for some reason needing, 20, $30,000 in a short amount of time, I would that would probably make me go back to the workforce. But outside of that, I don't see the need. I'm content, you know. I don't particularly love the heat where we live, but it's okay. I can sit in the air conditioning. Yeah, yeah, I have a higher electrical bill, but it is what it is. I it's I've had a pretty good run. You know, I got to travel a lot when I was in my 20s and 30s. A lot of people don't get to do that until they're, 65 plus and retired. Um, so, but yeah, it's some of it is just the mentality of I gotta get up and get it done because I don't want to go back to work for somebody else. Um, Part of it is also just I've always had what else am I gonna do? It's like if I'm gonna sit here and read a book or play a video game, or if I'm gonna be outside swinging a hammer or digging in the dirt, why not share that with people? It doesn't take that much extra effort to record those things. It does take some. You're gonna need to put in a couple, like I said, 2 to 3 hours a day minimum, into whatever it is that you're trying to build up into a thing. I don't like to use the word side hustle because that's bullshit. It's whatever you're wanting to pursue in life. You're gonna have to put in time because you can't do it without effort. A couple hours a day, 3 hours a day, you gotta find a way to carve that out. It's gonna be different for everybody, um, but you just gotta do it. You gotta treat it like any other job. Just gotta put in the hours. That schedule is almighty. I have my phone's got moved when Chris sat down. I use Google Calendar for everything. Otherwise, I would get lost. But I have updates that go off all the time throughout the day, and I have to schedule everything through Google because I don't remember anything. I do so much, and that's how I do so much. Is I program everything. It is very rare for me to have a day where I'll just sit here. This is a good example of this. I actually had the time this morning because I've done everything I needed to accomplish for the week. We're on a Friday right now. I need to make a video for tomorrow morning, but I've already got that prepped. I'm going to record that after this. That's the Saturday morning video. Sunday morning, I need to do another video, but I kind of think I already know what I'm going to do there. And then I have the live stream on Sunday morning. We're done with grocery shopping for the week. We've done everything we can outside for the meantime. Chris has to find block, and she's trying to find a new place to buy cinder block. See if it's cheaper there. Once she finds that out, we're going to buy a bunch of cinder block and some more chicken wire and actually put up an official garden in the backyard. Um, she's talking about raising meat chickens, so that's more content that we're going to produce on anything. And the other thing is just we're gonna get that other channel monetized, and the objective there is that once that gets monetized, that's going to be more her thing than my thing, because I'll then spend most of my time working on this, and then she's going to start to produce the content because I still do a lot of the production, like video stuff, and but what she does is she does a lot of the recording and a lot of the photography for the other stuff, and then just sends me the files, and then I just put it together into a video and get it uploaded out on social media. But at least she's handling it, so she grows into all that. The idea is that once that gets monetized, that's going to become her thing, and then it will probably expand beyond just the homesteading stuff once we get a vehicle, assuming that we do. I haven't needed a vehicle in so many years. I sold my truck in 2008, 7. End of 2007, I sold my truck on my way out. And when I sold all my tools and stuff at the end of 2007. I haven't had a vehicle since then. I've always rented. Like, it's been 15 plus years I haven't had a vehicle. The only reason we would consider getting one now is to start traveling around the country because everything we need we can get locally. Literally, it's a 20-minute walk to the supermarket. I can't necessarily get luxury items from the supermarket. Like I can't get feta cheese where I live. Like if I want feta cheese, I have to go to the city, which is 2 hours away. Um, there are little things like that. Black olives are hard to find here, but there's not much. I don't think there's really anything food-wise that I can't get here other than feta, and perhaps some really exotic things like tikka masala. You know, if I want Indian food, there's no Indian food here. Like I'd have to make it myself, and I'd have to getting garam masala here. I might be able to find it on Amazon, but it's going to cost me a fortune to get it shipped. Um, just little things like that. But by having ourselves in an environment where there's not a lot of distractions. There's not a need to go anywhere. There's not the need for transportation, a vehicle, and all this stuff. That allows us to spend more time doing the things we want to do and consequently being able to produce lots of content around those things. But if we do get, I mean, we've talked about getting a car. We would like to have one maybe within the next couple of years and get back out on the road and just start exploring Mexico. And here's the thing, assuming that eventuality happens at some point, I already have the content schedule mapped out for that because my brain works like that. I've always got plans A, B, and C that I'm working on, but then there's plans D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P based on all these other things that could happen. So I will literally, it drives Chris nuts, but I will get an inspiration and I will sit down and I'll be manic about it for 2 days, 3 days, and I will just map it all out. And then that gets stashed. But I have a manic thing that'll happen where I will just for a very short window of time will become hyper focused on creating a business plan for some idea. I will completely map it out and then I will just stick it to the side. And sometimes from time to time I will pull one of those things out and it gets implemented. So it's nice to have those. There's probably half a dozen of them stashed right now. But I already have all that's mapped out so that when and if it's not, I don't think it's a win. I think it's an if. It's not an if, excuse me. It's a win. When we ever get the vehicle, that's just the next step of where that channel goes. And then we'll get back to probably doing like weekend trips. We'll probably just work here Monday through Friday at the home. We've talked about getting a harness for at least a couple of the cats and taking them with us. We can't. Not all of them would want to go, but Smeagol's very outgoing. He likes to go explore. So does Frodo, and both of those cats are very friendly to other people. So I think that they would be okay. And I'm an hour in. To those of you who make it to the end of this, I salute you. You're crazy people for sticking around for an hour to listen to me ramble about how it is that I remain prolific. And maybe it's just because I have diarrhea of the brain. Anyway, I have actual video production I got to get done today. So this will probably come out on Saturday or Sunday morning. When it does, enjoy. If you have questions, feel free to ask. Come over to our Discord if you want. Hang out with us there. Support if you can. Memberships, super chats, super stickers, the Patreon page. It's all great. If you haven't followed along with the homesteading channel, please do. We're really close to getting 1,000 subscribers, which is the minimum you need. But the watch hours, we got a long way to go with the watch hours. So um, we still need like another. I think we're at just under 400 watch hours since we restarted content over there a couple months back. There's a long way to go for watch hours. That's a you can get it if you get viral stuff, um, but that takes a while to make that happen. So we're just plugging along. See you next time. I gotta go get some food before I do the next video. Peace.